what we're going to do this afternoon is look at what the other possibilities are for, particularly for the Unigap system, so what else can we use it for? But also, this network of people, as a group during the time of this project, we've got the capacity to possibly influence future directions and to stay in touch with the future directions in incorporating community interests in this NRM data management arena. As a way of attacking that this afternoon, what we're going to do is Jacinta's going to present some of what QMDC is doing with community monitoring data.
For those of you who don't know what QMDC does, we are a regional body obviously. We do some catchment planning to support landholders. We do networking, information sharing and on-ground solutions for landholders. At the moment, as you can see from our map, we have approximately 30% of our region that is under established sub-catchment group plan. Basically, we get groups of landholders together in sort of very similar regions. They work together as a group to achieve on-ground outcomes at a broad scale, not just like a patchwork landscape. We like to have big, robust outcomes across big chunks of the landscape. So that's sort of the angle that we come at NRM management from. With catchment management, we are aware in our particular team, and the water team at QMDC, that we can actually have a look at the state of catchment through waterways, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that, and that's why we're here. So to undertake this, we wanted to get monitoring happening at a really large scale. We are in the waters of Maranoa and BoM catchments. They're massive areas. So we needed to get a lot of community involvement to be able to carry out a very wide-ranging sampling program. And if stakeholder involvement is there, it's just a key element. If we can involve them, they'll understand, they'll take ownership, and they'll also show interest in what's going on around them, and they'll take responsibility for the fact that they are the ones who are influencing the changes that we want to see in our catchment. So where did we start? As some of you may already know, we did do a river health survey program in 2006. That was when we kicked off. We based it on a water watch methodology. We actually made some alterations to reflect the water rivers and Maranoa systems. We had Rivers accredited scientists do a quality assurance check on our method and our identification methods, our sampling methods, to make sure that we weren't too far off the mark there.
Did you get anyone else to discuss whether Rivers was the best way of doing it or not? I've sat in rooms with scientists arguing whether it should be Rivers or, God, I can't remember the other technique.
Signal,
what's that?
Signal.
Signal, right?
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
And and it was just like, I mean, if you pick Rivers, obviously the scientists are going to tell you that's the best way, but was there any way of working at whether that process was the best one for doing ecosystem health?
I think because signals, it's a widely accepted method of monitoring, but also it's one that can be relatively simply picked up by the community. It's not a terribly onerous thing to be able to train people in. I don't know if there are other methods of gauging river health, biologically speaking, like with macroinvertebrates, that would be better, community speaking.
Well, like I said, the argument was above me, but it was all about your sample size and your technique and how often, and they were quite... Yeah.
There's been a lot of discussion about it. I'm coming to some exciting stuff soon, which hopefully will answer that question a bit better, but we had some more concerns ourselves. So,
just to make that, the Rivers checks were on our sampling techniques and identification, not on the health assessment interpretation of the data. So we didn't use the Rivers model for assessing the data. We used the signal grade, but we used accredited scientists to check that we were actually sampling correctly and identifying correctly.
Okay.
So we had all this data. We've been sampling since 2006, now 2009. We needed to figure out what it all meant. Obviously, that's why we're here. So what we did, we actually went back in time. We went to NRW, we went to the MDBA, and we acquired as much historic data as we could get our hands on. Both departments were fantastic. They allowed us to use their their historic data. But the three things that we wanted to achieve, as I've said here, is to develop locally significant guidelines, not so much state or ANZ guidelines. We wanted to verify, as Paul was saying, that our data was in fact similar to that of the department data. So, you know, department data is quite rigorous, and there's always been that debate as to whether community data can be compared or used in conjunction with it. So we wanted to see, and we also wanted to develop a picture of trends in river and health, so time series data. And we wanted to do this using the signal scoring method. So we actually do use water quality data as well, but that's more to substantiate and support what we find from our signal results. So we just needed to tweak the data a bit. We had 14,500 individual samples that we acquired through the departments. Took quite a bit of working around, but very briefly, these are the things that we did. We had to basically take department data from like a species, subspecies level of identification back to water family, which is what we ascribe to, especially with the wider community. We also then, we had to take their catchments and split them into the catchments that we recognise. For example, the Maranoa Balon, as stated by NRW, we actually call it Lower Balon and Upper Balon, so we split the sites and samples by those regions. And habitat types also were reconfigured because agency data is split by many elements, many parameters, like you've got your macrophyte, you've got your griffles, you've got samples, there's so many.